Hey everybody, this is Draymond. Today we have a nice little 9-game Major League Baseball slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really does help the channel a lot. So we do have a pretty extensive slate here. We do have some plays we like in the pitching and some GPP plays, and then we have some really good plays throughout the bats and some stacks for you as well. So before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Let's get into this slate here. We'll start with our pitchers. Now, my top overall pitcher is going to be Joe Ryan from Minnesota. He gets a very favorable matchup against Chicago White Sox. He's also dominated them in the past. Last season and this season, I think he's faced them 3 times and been number 24 fantasy points in all 3, so he has some good potential here. He's also got the best K rate on the slate, and that gives us a lot of potential on this one as well. So I do think he's going to be one of the better options pitching wise. In general, he's also got the lowest total earned rate on this particular slate. So even if he gave up an earned run or two, he should be able to offset it with the strikeouts, and that will give him that 20 plus fantasy point we need. With that said, he is pricey, so he is the most expensive option. But the good news is today is we have some expensive plays and some value plays at this position. So, well, not super value, but just mid range priced. The next guy we'll look at is Lodolo. Now he is a GPP only play today for Cincinnati, as San Diego does have a good offense. But that said, he's been a decent pitcher so far, though his matchups have been up and down. So I think this is a similar situation where he has potential for a decent game, but he's still squarely a GPP play. I think he's just a little bit more pricey than I would like him to be, but his K rate is still good here, and he still average it. He should still keep this game pretty low scoring. So I do like him a little bit there. The next guy I'm going to look at is Max Fried for Atlanta. Now he's got a favorable matchup here against Seattle. He's also been very good in 2 of the last 3 games, and he has big time upside when he's on. And as long as he looks solid, he has that 20 plus fantasy point range. And his price today is pretty decent. The matchup is also good, and so he's definitely worth a look here. The K rate can be up and down, but if he can get 4 or 5, then he can pay off here on the slate. Crochet for the White Sox is an interesting contrarian play today. Now he started the season with 2 really solid games. Then 2 games later were kind of average, and then the last 2 games were not very good. That said, his price is still pretty reasonable here, and he's got a very favorable matchup against Minnesota. Now Minnesota does have some bats that can do things, and he has given up a few too many home runs so far this year, but he is a GPP play because of a strikeout potential on the slate. Then we'll look at Sanchez for Philly. Now they do have a favorable matchup against the Angels. I do like a couple of guys from the Angels today in the lineups, but I don't think his K rate is perfect, but he hasn't actually given up a home run yet this year, and his earned runs are usually pretty limited, so that's definitely going to give him some help here. And if he can get at least 5 or 6 strikeouts, which he's capable in certain matchups, and then he can definitely do well here, especially in this matchup against the Angels, who tend to strike out quite a bit. So I do think that has him some of an advantage. Then we'll look at Falter for Pittsburgh against Oakland. Now he is a Hail Mary play, but he's dirt cheap, and he has actually played pretty well to start the season. Now he doesn't typically have a bunch of 15 plus fantasy point games, but this season he started pretty solid with a few over that range, and being dirt cheap, you don't need him to get a ton necessarily to pay off here. But he occasionally he will have a big strikeout game, and he did that last game. I don't necessarily think he's going to do it again, but he is doing well enough that he's definitely worth at least a little bit of a Hail Mary play on the slate, but he's high risk. But Oakland has also been terrible. So moving into our catchers and our bats here. Catching is a solid position today. I definitely think it's wise to pay down here. There are 4 really good choices. Obviously, there's 2 expensive options as well, that being uh, William Contreras from Milwaukee as a one-off and JT Realmuto for Philly. I think Philly's going to be a pretty stackable team, so you could definitely go with Realmuto, but I don't think paying up at this position is really that wise, especially considering the fact we got several good options around 4,500 or lower. One being Ryan Jeffers, who has been phenomenal to start the season. He also has some home run potential in this game, and he's hitting the ball very well right now. So I like his upside in this matchup. Logan O'Hoppe for the Angels, also very interesting today. I do think there's a couple guys on the Angels that have some upside today, though he might strike out as well. So do keep that in mind. He has some potential though, and he's priced around the same price as Jeffers, a good contrarian play. Then we'll look at Mariano for Arizona. Now he's kind of a one-off play for Arizona today, as he does draw good metrics, but he has not done much yet to start the season. But he's had some games with multi-hits, and he can definitely do that in this matchup. And then Luis Campesino is kind of a Hail Mary approach at the position. He's cheaper, and he has hit the ball pretty well to start the year. Has some limited home run upside today, being this game's in San Diego against Lodolo. It's not the perfect option, but he's definitely interesting on the slate. So, like I said, a lot of good options at catcher. At first base, this position is pretty top heavy. The value plays are pretty risky today, so I am going to try to pay up at this position if I can find a way to do so. Bryce Harper being the top overall guy for Philly. I think Philly is going to be a popular team today to stack. Now, Harper is really expensive, so he's going to be hard to roster, but he's definitely in play. Same goes for Matt Olson. He's also very expensive. Now, he has not had the batting average yet this season. He does need a home run to really pay off at this price point, but he's definitely capable of that today. The Dodgers pitch first baseman and Otani and Freeman. Also interesting today, but they definitely don't draw as good of metrics as I would like. Looking at the value plays here, Sanyo for LA Angels, if he ends up back in the starting lineup today, which it looks like he might be today, then he'd be somebody that would have some interest in as a value play. He's nice and cheap, and he can pay off there, but he is not super ideal based on the metrics. Pasquinto for Kansas City looks really good today. He's been good in situations so far this season, and he looks really solid today at this position. Probably my favorite play just based on his price point and things like that. But he's going to be somewhat hard to roster due to the prices, and we do need to pay down some places. But Drury is actually a good spot to do a send for the Angels. He would be an interesting play here. I think the Angels do have some risk, but I do think that they have some guys that have some good value opportunities here. And then Michael Bush for Chicago Cubs. He's kind of a good one-off for the Cubs today, as he's hitting the ball very well, and he does draw some good metrics for this game. Moving into second base here, we do like a couple expensive plays here. I do like the value plays at this position as well, but it's going to be hard to roster these expensive guys again because they're pretty expensive. Looking at Mookie Betts, he's one of the most expensive plays on the slate. He's absolutely been phenomenal lately, and so hitting 387 with 6 home runs on the season so far. So he's definitely worth a look at his price point, but he's going to be extremely hard to roster. Marte is a lot less expensive, which is wild when you sell him at $6,000. But he's also hit the ball very well so far this season. He's definitely worth a look here. And then Xander Bogaerts for San Diego is interesting as a one-off here. He has not hit the ball particularly well, but he does draw some good metrics for this game and has RBI potential and stuff. Looking at some value plays here, Rengifo for the Angels. He's an interesting play today. He doesn't have a lot of home run upside, but he definitely has some good hitting metrics for this game. And he's definitely worth a look as he's been hitting the ball pretty well recently. And he does draw good metrics here. Brandon Drury can also play here. Kyle Farmer is for Minnesota is also a nice one-off here at this position. He's also extremely cheap. Now he's only had a couple of games so far this season that he actually really did much, but being at close to $2,000, he's somebody that's got some upside from just throw him in there to help you pay up at other positions. And then Kiki Hernandez for the Dodgers, he's also in play here. He's good in situations, and this is one of the situations that I do like to utilize him in. The Dodgers are the top overall team stack, so he's definitely in play here. Looking at third baseman, this third base is a little bit more limited today than some of the other options. That said, the options here for value are not great, but we do have a top overall guy in Machado who's not overpriced today, though the matchup isn't perfect. He is interesting play today as he is hitting the ball decently well so far this year. But for the value plays, Sanyo again can play here. Isaac Paredes, I guess I wouldn't necessarily call him a value play at $4,800, but he's a good contrarian play off Machado, and he has been hitting the ball well. I do like his metrics for this game. I also like Kyle Farmer and Eugenio Suarez here for Arizona, as Suarez has been inconsistent to start the year, but the metrics are very good for this game, and so he definitely looks interesting. Looking at our shortstops today, this position is not great today either. The value plays are a lot better at this position than they are at others, but the expensive plays are also decent. So Mookie Betts obviously jumps off the page. I would actually rather use Mookie at second base and then go with value at the shortstop, but you could also look at Elo De La Cruz as a good option here. If you don't use the Mookie, then you could definitely go with Elo De La Cruz for Cincinnati here. and he's got some really good stolen base upside in this matchup. Looking at the value plays here, though, we do like Kim from San Diego. He's a good one-off for San Diego again. He has been really solid in certain situations. Now, this situation is not the best, but it is good for his metrics, so he really jumps off the page as a good option. Bo Bichette is somewhat expensive today, but he is a good situational hitter, and this is a good situation for him finally. I haven't liked him a ton so far this year, but this game definitely gives me some upside for him. Looking at O'Neal Cruz, he's been absolutely smashing the ball hard, which is one thing we like here about this position. There's not too many guys that can hit home runs like he can, and he's definitely worth a look on the slate. And then kind of a Hail Mary here is Willie Adames from Milwaukee. He is a pretty pricey, but if you want to go with a couple Milwaukee guys, then he'd definitely be one of the guys that I would consider. Then we're going to look at outfielders here. And our top three here are Tatis Jr. For San Diego at $5,300, Otani obviously at $6,500, and then Acuna at $6,400. I don't think that you got to use any of those guys, but they're definitely in play. Schwarber, Trout, and Toscar Hernandez are the secondary list of top few guys. Now I really like Toscar being under 5,000, and so he's definitely going to be somebody I'm going to try to figure out how to at least roster a couple times, whether I use a Dodgers stack or not. Looking at the value plays, we'll look at Ruiz for Oakland. For now, he there's not a lot to like on Oakland, but Ruiz is one of the bright spots right now for the slate. He's one of the few guys that actually has some positive metrics for this game. He's also dirt cheap. Byron Buxton is interesting for Minnesota. He's really struggled to start the year, but he's had some good hits in the last few games, and he's managed to get walked and get some stolen bases and stuff too. The fantasy points have been up and down, but he's cheap enough that he's definitely worth a look. Jake Fraley is interesting for Cincinnati. Now, this game's on the road, so that does limit his potential a little bit, but he's actually been better so far this season on the road than at home. So, while that's true, we'll just take advantage. We'll try to take advantage of it, assuming he draws the start today. Michael Harris, let's see, Michael Harris for Atlanta is a good one-off for Atlanta today, as he's got really good metrics. He's hitting the ball very well. He also has that home runs potential today, and he's definitely worth a look at a very positive matchup. Brandon Nemo is also in play for the Mets. Now, the Mets have been inconsistent this season, and so has he, but he does draw good metrics in this game, and I like him when he hits that metric situation. Eloy Jimenez is a very one-off option for the White Sox. A very contrarian play today, but he's been hitting the ball very well in the last series against Tampa Bay, and I look for him to continue to hit the ball well. He does tend to go through streaky times, and he can hit home runs. So if anybody on the White Sox was to hit a home run today, it'll likely be him. Will Benson for Cincinnati, also interesting play today for the Reds, as he has not hit the ball particularly well so far, but he has home run boomer best positioning today, and he's also been better on the road than at home so far this season. Same goes for Randall Grichuk for Arizona. He's a nice one-off. He's also cheap. He does have that home run potential today, and he's definitely worth a look on the slate. And then finally, last but not least, Ian Happ for the Cubs. He's a good play today for the Cubs if you like the Cubs today. He has not been great, but in certain situations, he has good home run potential, and this is one of those days. Let's look at our stacks today. We have quite a few interesting stacks on this one. So overall, we do like the Dodgers stack the best here so far. Um, with bets, Toscar, Kiki Hernandez, Pages, Taylor, Otani, and Freeman. They all have some utility today, but you're not going to be able to pay up for all the expensive guys. But I think Betts and Toscar are the best two to pay up for. Looking at Philly, Schwarber, Harper, Turner, Bohm, Realmuto, and Marshall in play. It's going to be a hard stack to roster due to the prices, but that's definitely a viable one today. Arizona with Moreno, Marte, Walker, Suarez, and Grichuk. This is not the most expensive stack, so it's definitely a way you could utilize this slate, but it's going to be somewhat hard to roster on this one. Toronto, Varsho, Bichette, Vlad Jr., Springer. This is kind of a sneaky stack today. I don't think it'll be as popular as it maybe should be, but it's definitely interesting on this one. These next mid-level stacks are all very interesting and have some potential today. I really do like the Tampa Bay with Diaz, Paredes, Siri, those three at least, and then you can mix in the other guys. I also think the Pittsburgh three-play stack here with Reynolds, Cruz, and Sawinski has some upside. Minnesota does look kind of stackable today, and they're nice and cheap, so that helps. But I definitely go with their catcher, and then maybe one of the outfielders, and then one of the infielders. And for the Angels, I do like Trout today, and I do like Ward and Sanyo and Drury and No Hope even. And so I think this is a different. I think this is a stack that will be sneaky and could pay off if they have a big game here. For Atlanta, Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olson, and Harris, very expensive stack, but and it doesn't. They don't have the best matchup as they have had recently, but I do think they're somewhat viable. And then the value, the low end guy teams. I think San Diego is one of those teams that kind of fits in both camps where it looks good and kind of looks bad because nobody jumps off the page as like great plays, but a lot of them look pretty good in this matchup, and so they're definitely interesting. As for Cincinnati, I mean, they've actually been doing better. These three, especially, have done better on the road than at home. So, while that's true, those guys have some stackability. For the Mets, Nemo, Lindor, and Alonso are the top overall guys there. For Kansas City, Pasquanto is a good one off. But you could also end up with Melendez, Witt Jr., and Garcia in your lineup, though it's somewhat expensive. An Oakland stack is very cheap today with Ruiz, Rooker, and Toro Henderson. For the Cubs, Hop, Bush, Morel, and Horner all have some utility on the slate as good one or two off type stacks, or even that I wouldn't really go super stacky with that team though. Seattle really doesn't have anybody that I like on it at all, and I do think that that's going to be a tough stack for any for DFS wise. And then for the Chicago White Sox, Sheets, Jimenez, Avon, Pham, and Mendick all have some utility today as one-off options. And like I said, I think Jimenez is probably my favorite, but Sheets is also up there. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting,